welcome to this very important session. The first ETT Viewpoint session, the exhibitions think tank session is being launched today in the midst of the first International M.I.C.E Showcase Virtual Summit. Friends, we all know that the MICE industry is in a disruption. We are in a state of turmoil. And at this point in time, one thing that is coming to our rescue is the word virtual. Well, we all were very afraid of this for many years, but finally, I think the time has come when we are starting to embrace the virtual. We'll know more about this from the experts who are with us, whether virtual is a threat or is a friend indeed. And no better panel to have with us than the esteemed speakers from all around the world. I would like to welcome our esteemed speakers, and I would also like to welcome our attendees to this session. I'd like to welcome Mr. MATTHIAS, TESI board, CEO of MBB Consulting Group and founder of Exhibitions Think Tank. I'd like to welcome Mr. STEPHAN, Head of Technology and Digital Transformation, EASYFAIRS, Mr. Justin, who is a very well-known events consultant, Mr. Mike Frost from EXPOCAST, he is the recruitment director and also very well versed with technology, Mr. ATUL TODI, who is the CEO of 10 Times, Mr. ABHISHEK KUMAR, COO of Grover Audiovisuals, and they are into virtual technology currently. So with this, I'd like to open up this session, and I'd like to invite Mr. MATTHIAS, TESI board, to please start this session with your opening remarks, because we would like to understand the concept of virtual. Is it a threat for us or is it a friend? Over to you, TESI.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me to this session. Great honor to speak here. Is virtual a threat or is virtual a friend? I think this is really dependent if we make it a friend or if we make it a threat. So it's not either or per se, it's really what we make out of it. And it reminds me really to the discussion we had around 20 years ago when the internet came and people were discussing, can internet destroy trade shows? And then after 1 or 2 years, people discovered that the internet is not the thing. The internet is exactly what we make out of it. And this is exactly the same. So virtual, if we stay inactive, other people have great ideas how to grab business from us, how to provide value to our target groups, then it's a threat. If we become active, if we use virtual, if we use digital, if we use hybrid in a way to increase or to build on our already great USP we provide to our customers, then it's a friend. So it's totally up to us what we make out of it.
Very well said. It's the beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, and it's up to us how we embrace this new concept. But TESI, tell me something. I like to push on another question to you quickly. You're the founder of Exhibitions Think Tank, and you have worked very hard with your team over these last few months. What have been the crucial insights that you'd like to share with our attendees?
Well, we organized the first exhibition think tank around 3 months ago, and the goal of the exhibition think tank was really to find out what do we need to change in the exhibition industry. And there are 2 or 3 findings which I think are really, really important. And the first one is that we had already challenges before the COVID-19 crisis. Like, is our value proposition really sticking up? Do we have the right value for the right price? Do we have the right diversity? Is our product fit for the next generation of decision makers? And some of these challenges we had probably didn't take very serious before the crisis, and they fall on our feet now even stronger. So one thing that really came out of the think tank is, if a challenge comes up, deal with it when you see it and don't push it to a later phase. The other thing, besides the things I already mentioned, value proposition and pricing, is for sure massively the topic hybrid event. And that was another challenge. The industry struggled with digital for 15 years and struggled really to find a way how to use digital not only to support the on-site days, but also to provide real value. And I think this is the chance in the crisis that taking digital, taking hybrid much, much more serious and developing functions and channels that really support the business of our customers. That is one big outcome of the think tank, and we continued now as a think tank club. So people can become a member as a club, and we continue with running sprints and running think tanks. We just run the sprint discovering the best hybrid event. We found amazing best practice examples. And in around 4 weeks' time, we start another think tank to discover the new touch points. Because when we think that we are moving into hybrid events, that consequently means also that our target groups will have new touch points. We need to define, we need to discover, and we need to describe, and that is the next think tank about. So there is ongoing work to be done.
And I must compliment, you are doing a lot of work for the industry. Well, with this, I'd like to move to Mr. Stephan, and I'd like to understand his take. And in particular, are we losing value from the live events? Because sooner or later, live events will be back. Are we putting so much into the virtual that probably the attendees or the visitors would prefer virtual over live events? Is it a threat that you consider?
Well, first is that yes, live events are going to come back, but they're not going to come back like that at once. It's going to take time, and people are going to wait sometimes a little bit. We see a lot of people being quite weary and say, I prefer to wait for the crisis to be a little bit over to get back to the events. And the second thing is that I would say exactly the same as TESI. It's dangerous if you decide that it's dangerous. If you see a lot of events that have put content online, it actually brought them more success than before. If I take the TED conference, for example, it was a pretty small conference in the past, and then they decided to put everything online. People said, you are crazy, people are not going to come to your conference anymore, and they became one of the largest conference organizers in the world. Somebody within the company told me lately, yeah, but if we put everything online, aren't we shooting ourselves in the foot? Because people are not going to go back to go to the event. And I told them, look, if you're not willing to shoot yourself in the foot, somebody else will shoot your foot. A lot of other organizers are doing it. And if you're an attendee, you want to have the choice. And I often compare it to music, for example. Yes, I love going to concert, and concert remains the highlight, but I still like to listen to music online also. It's complementary. And I think that if you don't offer both, then you're really losing value. The real value is when you offer both, and when your digital offering becomes complementary, and it allows you to extend your reach both in time, because outside of the dates of your show, people can still interact together, and both in space, because people will not travel sometimes to attend the show, and that way they can still attend the show and you can still have attendees. So I think it adds a lot of value actually.
Very well said indeed. And with this, I'd like to move to Justin. So what is your take on the virtual events that you have attended so far? Have there been any light bulb moments where you feel wow factor and you felt that, yes, this is the thing of the future?
There's been many great virtual events, ranging from book festivals to trade exhibitions to financial conferences. And the engagement that's delivered through these events has been first class. It provides so many different possibilities, different options for engagement with communities and presenting real business solutions. So the acceptance of these events has been slow, I must say. And I think that now, 6 months down the line, and it is only 6 months, our acceptance and our willingness to participate in these events is much greater. So as an opportunity moving forward, I really see that we have to embrace it. I don't see it as a threat. I see it's a bigger threat if we don't embrace it and we don't make these events become our friend.
Thank you. And with this, I'd like to move to Mike. And Mike, I'd like to ask you, have you done any SWOT analysis so far? Do you see some strengths and weaknesses of the virtual?
I mean, I've not done any sort of explicit SWOT analysis. I think, to echo what others have said, you know, it's very much what you make of it. With everything that you could analyze as a threat, there's a way to turn that into an opportunity as well. So, you know, we've heard people sort of talk about the likes of LinkedIn and Alibaba getting into the event space as well. I don't see those large companies, for example, moving into the physical event space because they haven't got that expertise. So are we going to see, for example, joint ventures perhaps coming around? And, you know, if there's an opportunity to team up with really large corporations such as that, I think, you know, that's a way of looking at the impact of virtual and hybrid coming into our industry, you know, potentially unwelcomed at first, but we have to embrace it now. There are opportunities to yeah, make massive impacts to the way we do business.
Yes, of course, a lot of opportunities exist, and as we continue to delve more into these virtual events, we'll get more familiar with them. With this, I'd like to hear from the horse's mouth, Mr. ATUL, TODI. We'd like to understand from you, how's it going so far, and what is your take on the future of our industry?
So firstly, Raghav, thank you for having me here, and I completely agree with all the panelists here. But I think the starting point I would say, which I keep saying, I've said it in my many forums, is how does an event professional see himself? I mean, what is our core role? I see event planners as a melting pot. They bring communities together. We have a very critical role to play. I've seen all kinds of platforms. I've seen 10 times, we can't become an event planner. There's a very intricate work we do. It does not matter if it's virtual, physical, there is a tremendous value event organizers bring to the table. So that itself tells us that virtual cannot be a threat. It's a channel for us. Yes, there is losses being made because physical is not happening, but virtual itself is not a threat. And now from a platform or from data point of view, what is very interesting that we are seeing, the age group of 21 to 30, there is almost 30 to 40% uplift in the number of participants in that age group who are coming on our platform looking for virtual events. So what we've been saying for so long, I know Matthias has said it, STEPHAN, we've talked about this before, the whole millennial, the event industry was stuck with we said 300 million odd audience, but we are 3 billion knowledge workers. This is an opportunity for the industry to spread its wings so that when we open up, we actually come back way stronger. We have an opportunity to sort of crack down on an audience which are digital natives, right? So I see this as an opportunity for the event industry to finally actually grow its wings and actually become stronger. In terms of, we would see some changes. I think physical events will have to become more experiential. Everyone's been talking about it, even pre-COVID. And I think I completely agree with Matthias when he said it. It's not something which we're talking about right now. We've been talking about digitalization in so many forums for so long. So that is eventually going to happen. The physical events have to be more experiential. Your virtual would actually become a feeder or a community builder, which would feed your physical events. So what we are seeing is organizers looking to do roadshows, virtual roadshows. We were already doing virtual roadshows. So why not think of virtual as a way to create that community and drive them to your physical events? That's the trend we are seeing. I think event organizers are going to come back stronger, and with the mix of virtual and physical, and I'm not just talking about hybrid when the physical is happening. I'm talking about a unique hybrid model where the virtual is feeding the physical and not just happening simultaneously.
Maintaining and creating that synergy is very important going ahead, and it can complement our physical event before the event, not just before or not just at the event, but before and after the event as well. Well, Abhishek, you have ventured into a virtual platform, and you are helping out organizers to come to your platform. What are the main elements that you feel distinguish the virtual platform from the physical one? And because a lot of organizers to whom I am connecting, they have this opinion that the virtual is all about connecting to your website, connecting to your social media. Is it true, or is it more to it?
So actually, my perspective is more focused on the India market in terms of conferences. And we are doing a very limited number of events, but we are doing many conferences for virtual part. And the good thing is that every conference organizer I have met, whether it's an association, whether it's a immediate conference organizer, they are all looking for virtual as a stepping stone to be able to, like lot of conferences which were finalized for September, November, December, the last quarter, they are doing the virtual of the same conference, which they will be doing the physical next year because of the delay. So they are creating a 0 year for the conference industry, and the virtual and the hybrid of that is happening. That being said, I would also like to say that there is a fatigue, which is something which I have seen in the conference industry for audience. and the bounce time which I have seen on the overall period for one delegate is very, very high. That, you know, he is there only for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, especially in the industry which I am catering to. And unlike the physical event where he was there for like the whole day or maybe at least 5 hours, he is there for 15-20 minutes and he's logging off. So that is where I feel the biggest challenges for the virtual industry. It is doing a good job of, you know, stop gapping and continuing that education, continuing those conferences, but I think it will shoot down also very fast. This is my view of my current industry which I'm doing. And just like before COVID, we never heard of any virtual platform, any virtual you know, conferences happening on a larger scale. Similarly, post when the hybrid events also end, we've already actually, I would be very happy to say this, that for a lot of government agencies, for ministries, we are already started doing hybrid events. I did a hybrid launch even yesterday for a couple of ministries. So those things are ongoing, but that will go down very fast, I feel, come maybe March or maybe certain periods of those time, and we will see the physical events starting very fast and the virtual events, even though we've invested largely in developing a virtual platform. But I feel the use of that diminishing, unfortunately or fortunately for me, because I do physical space as well, diminishing very fast after we have the end of maybe the first quarter of the next year.
Okay,
Raghav,
yes.
if I may add a couple of points to what Abhishek said. You know what is very interesting for us is, on average, we are getting 150 minutes of participation per user on the platform. We've had around 100,000 users on the floor platform, which we built. But even what's more interesting is the feedback NPS. Compared to physical, we are getting almost 40% improvement in the feedback, the feedback NPS, when I'm comparing all of physical event feedback versus the virtual event feedback. So I'm seeing a very bright spot in what is happening, you know. So again, going completely by data, yeah.
If I can just add one point which was said, and this is very similar, or you can say contrary to what you've said, is that if I compare the data of the number of delegates, if I may be putting it in this way, the number of delegates who are coming in, some conferences, it is 5 times the standard conference which I was doing. So I have done certain conferences who I have been doing for the last 8 years in the physical space. Now the same conference I have done in virtual, the attendance is 5 to 8 times more. But the duration of each person is less than 10 times. It's 1/10 of the physical this thing which is there. So which is a very particular you know, nuance which kind of suggests that how long can you listen to one person talk and not do anything else. Of course, you have a lot of opportunity to visit exhibition stalls, to do this, to do that, but that doesn't really, you know, happen in the virtual space the way the feeling which is there in the physical space which is there. So that is where I think a lot is left to be desired, and I think people are really hungry for the physical events to happen, and it will give a huge you know, diminish in terms of, you know, once we finish off this COVID period, and I think it will be positive for the industry.
So this is a very interesting insight, Abhishek, but you have to tell me whether these shows have been free to attend, or these were paid shows where you've seen a steep increase in the number of delegates attending the conferences.
So actually, to some of you already know, but for the rest of the panel, we do a lot of medical conferences, and like 80% of my market is medical conferences. And in that 80%, 70% of the shows, 70% I would say are free to attend, and the rest 30% are paid. And your point is very correct that the paid shows have had a lower bounce rate than the free shows. And of course, that difference is there. And there is also a large gap in the number of people who have registered because they are free to register versus the number of people who've come. So that is also a very pointed part of the statistics, and which is sometimes, you know, I feel very sad on the part of the organizer that he is expecting, you know, registration data of 15-20,000 delegates, and actually what have come up is say 8 to 10,000 delegates. Almost 50% of the people have actually turned up. So that is a very difficult parameter to explain to the conference organizer.
Sure. So perfect. I'll come back to you and Atul with more of these insights, because you are you know, you have clearer picture on all these fronts. So I'll move to TESI, and I'd like to ask TESI that you've been involved in a lot of research work during these last 3-4 months. Can you give me some insights from some of your researches, like what percentage of organizers are in favor of going virtual? Are they prepared with their employees training and all? Are they good to go? What is the mindset of our industry?
Yeah, the mindset is, that's a great question. Thank you very much. So I would put the organizers, first of all, in 3 pockets of a third each. Is that some of the organizers I experience are hoping that old life will come back. They're thinking the COVID-19 crisis is a massive hiccup. We write off 2020, we forget about this year. Once it's over, hopefully it's over soon, and then old life will come back. And I think that is a very dangerous view of reality, because I personally believe old life will not come back. 1/3 are moving into virtual events, but they struggle to really build up the skills or to build up really the expertise, what it means. And but another third, and I think this is really hopeful, is really building up skills, are going into building up strategies, and so on and so on. And I see 2 different phases. At the beginning of the crisis, we were all shocked, and we have to like shock move into the new reality. So there was a lot of tactical movements going on because it hit us by a surprise. Now this 1/3, they are moving into strategic thinking and into, okay, what is a virtual event really means? What is the experience? How could it help my live event once my live event is back? And I just had, when you asked me for the mindset, I see also a shift in the way how we discuss virtual events, because I think we have discussed virtual events or digitalization for 20 years in the wrong way. Only the question is, what is more important, a virtual event or a live event, is already the wrong question, because it's always a journey. And sometimes people are on the journey and they appreciate digital tools, and sometimes they appreciate live tools, on-site experience. And to put one model against the other model is a big sign that we haven't understood this journey. It's like when I book a train ticket or when I book a flight ticket. If I want to book a flight ticket very quickly, I do it online. If I have a very tricky problem, I would like to talk to a person. So sometimes on my journey to do this little piece of business, sometimes online is enough for me. Sometimes person to person is necessary for me. And this is, I think our colleagues from India described it very well. It's not, again, one format against the other format. It's when on the journey does the digital format works better, and when does the face-to-face format works better. And if we look at this strategically, then we build up the journey and give different types of touch points. So I hope we move on from the question virtual or face-to-face, because it's the wrong question at all, in my view.
So just to jump in there, I think in terms of getting the focus right, you know, on the right part of the journey, as TESI was talking about, something that cropped up a lot during the think tank was that it's super important that we're communicating with our customer base throughout this to make sure we're delivering what they actually need, because depending on what sector you're serving, their needs will have changed in different ways. You know, some sectors have been hit far worse than others due to the pandemic. So they will have potentially a completely different set of requirements from us as event organizers in terms of what they need us to deliver. So it's really important that we're communicating constantly. And that could be part of the platforms that we put out there to make sure that they have the opportunity to tell us what they need, so that we can then strategize and make sure we're putting out the best products for them that they need at the time.
Very well said, Mike. And I'll request you to elaborate on this communication aspect. And I think along with this is the aspect of trust, which makes synergy with this aspect. Can you highlight these 2 points for us?
Yeah, of course. So, you know, I think as it's been said before, it's, you know, where TESI said there's the sort of the three different thirds on the organisers front. If we use that as an example, the third who are hoping that things are just going to go back to normal, that's a very dangerous mindset. I think, you know, we've seen this on the supplier side for the event industry as well. Those who've sort of almost shut up shop and hope things will blow over. If you stay silent, somebody else is going to move into your space. So it's just about keeping those lines of communication open, and you can't really give, there's no one size fits all to this. You have to, you know, customize this depending on what your customer base needs. So yeah, it's difficult to really pinpoint things with any sort of specificity, but as long as you're keeping those lines of communication open and that it's constant, you know, I mean, pre-pandemic, you know, various organisers were launching all sorts of 365 platforms to keep engaging their community all year round, and that was complementary to the physical events that were, say, once a year or every 2 years. And it's, you know, potentially if you've already got that 365, that can be a base from which you develop the virtual and the hybrid elements of your platform now. But again, you know, if you sit still and wait for things to blow over, you'll lose your market share, and that's not good for you if you're the business owner. It's not good for your employees, because and actually, just to touch on employees as well, everybody's obviously having to cut back on costs at the moment. But if you cut back too severely in terms of the people who are actually doing that communication with your client base, you know, if your salespeople and your account managers, your marketers, if they're all furloughed or redundant, you're gouging out the part of your workforce that actually has the expertise in terms of communicating to your client base and the people who know your clients the best.
Very well said. And I like to frame this in a quote that I read today morning, that sometimes you have to take difficult decisions because or maybe new decisions which are completely on the evolution front for you, because if you don't take them now, it will cost you more if you take them later. So with this, I'd like to move to Mr. Stephan, and I'd like to understand, are there any new skills that will be required for our employees or for the organizers teams going forward? Are we missing on those skills right now, and what those skills could be?
Yes, obviously there's a lot of technical skills to acquire, but that's relatively easy to acquire. I'd like to get back to what was said before, especially by ABHISHEK and ATUL, about we now have a much larger audience, and we see a much larger audience in the events, in the online events, but people stay a short time. A lot of people stay a short time. And I often like to, when I explain this to the people in our company, I say, okay, look at how we consume television 10 years ago. You know, after dinner, everybody would sit in front of the television at the right time and watch the movie at the right time when the television was deciding to air the movie. I compare this to our live show. It still makes sense, and we still go to the movies from time to time, but now we consume content differently. We are in the age of Netflix, of YouTube, and of Spotify. And so personally, when I go on Netflix, I sometimes sample 5 minutes of a lot of shows before I select the one I want to see. And I think that's exactly what happens with online events and conferences. We'll have a lot of people who come, check it out, and stay for 10 minutes and decide it's not ready for them, and they will come back and check it later. And one of the main skills we have to acquire is how to keep these people engaged. We don't know how to do that. We used to have these people who are on site at the conference or at the event, and they were a captive audience sitting there. And yes, they could do something else. Yes, they could walk away, but it's much more difficult than just change windows or tabs on your browsers and do something else. So we have, for me, the most important skill we have to learn is how do we transfer this, what I call this captive audience, to a captivated audience? How do we keep them hooked to the content? And we don't have the skills to produce that, I would say, sticky content that people want to stay and watch. And that's the risk, because we now have a huge opportunity. We can address so many more people with our content and conferences. But if the content is not good enough or not organized in the right way, then people will just fade out and do something else. We have to do Netflix type conferences or YouTube type conferences, not television from 15 years ago type conferences. I think for me, that's That's the most important skill we have to acquire.
Very well said.
We want people to binge watch our content, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. And in fact, another important aspect is the revenue streams, because all that matters for the organizers is whether they're able to monetize. It was okay earlier when we were having a lot of webinars and all were free to attend, but we have to go beyond that. And I'd like to move to Justin to address this question. Can we have revenue streams? And have you seen some events, using this model of monetizing the virtual events effectively?
If I could just pause on that question and jump back to the conversation and some of the points that you've raised. So I'd like to also just make a comment on trust, because we're at a real crossroads in our industry at the moment, and trust is being stretched. The biggest threat, I think, to virtual and hybrid events and our industry in general is poor event delivery. And we've all agreed that we've seen some terrible online events which immediately have a loss of brand, a loss of reputation, loss of trust, loss of community. And these are very difficult to build once you've lost them. So I think that with this trust issue, we have to be careful, and we really have to get the delivery right. We have to get the engagement. Picking up on the question for Stephen, I refer to this as the power of distraction. When we're online, it's so easy to be distracted, whereas at a live event, we are a captive audience. But we're a captive audience because we've chosen to be captive. Online, I think that people are still dipping their toe. They're looking at Netflix for 5 minutes to decide if they're going to commit or not. Now, this is a really pivotal time in our industry. It's a real crossroads, as I mentioned. And going back to your question about revenue streams, this trust issue here is being stretched as well, because let's face it, our industry hasn't been making any revenue for the whole of 2020 pretty much. And it's really hurting our industry, and companies are trying to make revenue. So they are also pushing their customers to generate revenue, selling products that maybe are not completely ready to launch. They're a work in progress. They offer opportunities, they offer features, but maybe they just need to be a bit more sophisticated, a bit more refined before they really go to market. So no, that's the traditional model, and that's the expansion into live and hybrid. But with regards to pricing models, the most interesting pricing model that I've actually seen is from an exhibition in Munich called EFAT, which is a waste expo. And they are organizing their first virtual event called EFAT Impact. And they are actually having free participation for exhibitors and charging a per lead cost. So we don't know how this will go. The event hasn't happened yet. It's scheduled for early to mid-September. But that will be a very interesting event, and one that I'm keeping my eye on to see really the success of that potential new revenue stream, that new business model, pricing model, sorry. Thanks, Raghav.
Let me jump in, Raghav, also quickly here regarding the question of revenue. It is a big question in our industry if online or if hybrid events can generate any revenue. And I saw a couple of presentations where people said, hey, online is great, but it's just not generating any revenue. So why should we do it? And in fact, the opposite, in my view, is true. I know a statistic from all B2B marketing budgets, which are the budgets who are funding stands at exhibitions. Actually, 4/5 by now go to B2B online channels, and only 1/5, only 20%, going to on-site channels. So it's in fact, the opposite is true, that you can generate a lot of money with B2B online services. Only our industry doesn't know how to do it because we have not done it in the past. And this is exactly coming back to what Stephan answered, is we need skills, and we need the skills how to monetize online channels. And I think we have two problems here. The first, for sure, is the skills, but the second is we don't have the confidence. We think in our industry we can't monetize it. For that reason, we don't monetize it. But if we have the confidence that we are providing value with our online channels, for sure we can charge for it. We just need to understand how. and we need to have the confidence to do it. And then for sure, online can be monetized as well, as we can see in many other channels as well.
And if I may just, I think that if you look at it from that perspective, we're probably looking at it from the wrong end. It's not like, can we make money with it and then we do it? It's like, there's the market, there's our customer, do our customers want it? And then we have to ask ourselves, how can we monetize it and which type of package we have to create to go around with it? But the main question is it something that our customers want? Because independently of the fact that we make money with it or not, if our customers want it and we don't do it because we make no money with it, somebody else will do it and they will find a way to make money with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very well said. And the point of value, I think as long as we can create value, we can monetize anything. And one food of thought, my grain of input to this discussion would be that the benefit of virtual is that we can monitor everything. Literally, we can see how many clicks were there, what number of people spent, what amount of time at each stall, and were there any conversions, how many visitors were actually there. So nothing is left to just assumptions. And I'd like Atul to delve deeper into this vital aspect, because he's been organizing a lot of virtual shows on 10 times since the start of pandemic. Atul, give us some insights about how's been the experience. Have you got any testimonials from the organizers about how good the platform is, or any other specific insights which tells us the benefits of virtual? You have to unmute, Atul.
Of almost, I'll address your question in a couple of different directions. The first thing is, most of the organizers who have used the platform have come back. So clearly they saw some value, even though it's early days. What is very interesting is many of them, couple of them actually have become affiliates, because they did they used the platform and suddenly other people saw it and they were like, hey, we want to use it. So again, that's besides the point. What is very interesting, you pointed out, is everything is trackable virtually, right? Now it's up to us how we sort of monetize this. I'll give you an example of a show that happened, I think last week. We had approximately 100 odd exhibitors, and we had an audience of 1,500 participants. There were more than 3,000 meetings that happened. So yes, there were still exhibitors who were complaining, hey, we did not get meetings, but they forgot that they're in a virtual environment. You have clear track of how many meetings they got, right? And we've been hearing organizers complain, or exhibitors complain for many years in the physical world, where they would very easily tell an organizer, hey, we did not get anything. And then the organizer really has nothing to really prove that, hey, you got 15 people to come into your booth. You got to see who was attending to them. But in the virtual space, there is a lot of traction. Justin, I think you brought up a very interesting point about the IFAT flipping the model. And I think that is something that we see a lot of value too, because here you are saying that, okay, you have to gain trust. Trust is what will monetize the virtual space. The question is, or the larger elephant in the room is, what would be the form of physical event when we come out of the COVID? After having done this meeting over 1 hour, I'm not going to travel one day and then sit through another day of the event, 2 days for what I was gaining in 1 hour. The value of the physical event would be in the festivalization of the pure experience. It has to be more sensory. The virtual will drive a lot of utilitarian value, as in, if you want to consume content, I'm not going to go to an event because I want to listen to 5 speakers. That's not happening. So we really need to rewire and think about what will people go to a physical event for, and what will they not go to physical events for. So I think that is where the secret is. And it will be a mixture from what we understand. Just visualize. I mean, there is no one's charging us to visualize. Maybe a big conference happens virtually, and then there is a local meetup post the virtual in every big city. Let's say the big congress happens virtually over 2 days, and then there is a get together in London, New Delhi, New York, San Francisco on the same time. I mean, I'm just saying we'll have to sort of think about how the models are going to change, with physical being more experiential, while virtual will be more of a content delivery. because it's convenient, it's cheaper, and people are impatient. I mean, no one, especially the millennials, they don't have the patience of spending 2 days just sitting through a conference in a physical world. So I think we have to be ready for, as organizers, as an industry, we have to prepare for it.
Okay, so this is an important observation about millennials, and on this front, probably I'd come back to maybe TESI for his insights. Maybe LinkedIn or Facebook or maybe Alibaba, can these become better organizers than most of our traditional ones? So I'll reserve this question for the next round, and for now I'll move to Abhishek, and I'd like to understand, Abhishek, you mentioned about reduction in attention span of attendees. Well, this is a significant point, and it cannot be taken lightly, and it would not go well for the virtual model. Tell us more about it.
So actually, if I look at it from two perspectives, one is an exhibition-centric meeting and one is a conference-centric meeting. These are two broad spectrums in the larger segment of events. So for the exhibition-centric, I think we are quite neutral. And what I have seen is that the buyers versus the exhibitors, as Atul was saying, that there is a lot of analytics which is available, and the analytics is not just who came to your stall. It is about what browser they attended with, what device they attended with. Like in my industry, I have seen that more than 70% people are attending through their mobile devices, and less than 3% through an iPad kind of a tablet kind of a device, which was very surprising to me. These two stark contrasts were there. So that is a very critical balance when we look at, the attention span of the people, because when you are on your mobile device, your attention span is shorter because you get a call and you start speaking and so on and so forth. So similarly, the corporate and the government events which we've seen, the attention span is much more because they are attending through a more stable device like a laptop. I got a requirement for one of the conferences which I'm doing next month for making the whole platform enabled via a smart television. So we are doing that for them as well, because they said that it will be a Sunday and I want to just click on my television, click on the smart television and go into a hall and just watch the lecture whole day long. So those are also a lot of points which are actually coming into play. So new things are morphing. I am doing something for the government where there is an interpretation system required, and the government doesn't use certain platforms and uses certain other platforms. So those interpretation things are required. So all those new parameters which were little difficult in the physical world are becoming super complex in the virtual world. So we are having several languages in which even the speakers are speaking in different languages, the attendees are in different languages, and so on and so forth. So all those things, taken into place, it is a very complex world as far as difficult physical events which were morphing now into the physical space. The other thing which somebody previously turned out was said was that the content actually for a lot of medical events which I'm doing is not so good on the virtual space. I will say the reverse as well, because I have a laparoscopic conference which they wanted to do in 3D, which is currently impossible because you need to have the 3D television in your home or you need to have the display device, and plus the normal streaming is not good enough for most bandwidth situations. So even a full HD video which needs to be placed, which all those things, there are restrictions in which, we used to do live transmission of multiple surgeries at one time. So all those things are a little bit restrictive at the moment, but I'm sure technology will go up when 5G will come in, other better bandwidth options will come in, those things will also go up, and the industry in itself will evolve. So I think we are moving forward, but I feel in India, because nobody touched upon this topic, that the price sensitive market which India is, the moment you will need to pay for the physical event to happen, they will not want to actually go into the virtual balance which needs to be understood. So the price sensitive part is very important when we go for the hybrid event. So that's what I would like to say.
And yes, I also have some reservations about whether online is purely for content and for physical the content is not important, but then we'll leave it to Atul to contest that later. And I'll move to TESI, and TESI, I come back to that question where what Atul mentioned, that millennials how to get them back to the exhibitions, maybe virtual or maybe physical. On that, virtual may take a lead, but then Facebook, LinkedIn, Alibaba, are they a big threat because they have all the database, they have all the reach with them?
Absolutely, and I remember, I think I told this during one session in the think tank, is I had a couple of years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, I had a call with LinkedIn regarding a consulting project I was conducting at this time. And it was a strategy guy from LinkedIn. And I actually asked him, why are you guys not in the events industry? You have a database of all professionals around the world. You have the best data to organize events. And his shocking answer was, we know we can be in events. The industry is just too small for us. And that also plays a little bit on the point how much money is in data and how much money is in online versus in on-site event. The statistic I mentioned, 4 times more money goes into data and into online than in physical events. Back to the point, so we should watch at Facebook and LinkedIn when they start changing their minds and take physical events more serious. They have more skills, they have more people working on digital events, and they have more firepower and more data to really make it happen. So this is something that is an alarm bell for us, that we really need to build up skills in data and digital. That is one point. The other point is how to get the millennials back, or how to attract them actually with physical events. There are 2 things. One is, in the exhibition think tank, we had a student group from Italy. And this student group from Italy, they were blowing the minds of all people who were in the exhibition think tank. They had exactly the right thoughts, they had exactly the right concepts, and they were actually excited about the idea to meet face to face. And I think I was another example. I was listening to an 18-year-old influencer on a conference 2 years ago, long before COVID. And he was an influencer in the retail industry, and he was speaking to exhibitors from retail shows. And his main message was that he said, guys, I'm 18 years old, so you think you don't have me as a customer, but a couple of facts about us millennials. First of all, we are conservative. So we like community, we like relationships, and we like to meet people. And this is the second fact, is we like face-to-face. We like to meet people. So it's not that we don't like face-to-face. The only difference between us and your generation is we don't make such a big deal out of digital. Yeah. For us, it needs to be a seamless experience. And here exactly lies the problem. The millennials, they want to have an absolutely seamless experience. If you tell the millennials, hey, you need to register for a Zoom meeting, then you need to have another registration for an event up, then you need to have another registration for making an appointment at the event, then you need to have another registration to go to the conference. They said, okay, great. Why? Why can I not have one registration, have an online community, have the on-site community, meet Stephan online, meet Stephan on-site, all one seamless experience? So why are your generation making such a big deal out of digital? Offer me a seamless journey, and then you have me, full stop. And then I love to come to your events. That is the whole secret, how to get the next generation back.
Very well said, and these are very good points to ponder on, TESI. Thank you for that. And I'd like to move to Stephan, and I'd like to understand from him, because a lot of people whom I've spoken to, they think that they are confused whether virtual is just meeting online, having a webinar, or does it mean a full 360-degree 3D experience, immersive experience, and then that's a separate kind of a virtual. Would you like to give some clarity to our attendees in this regard?
Yes, we probably need a little bit of clarity on the words that we use when we talk about digital events, online event, hybrid events, whatever you want to call them. You know, the 3D type with avatars events that we've seen, they are here. It's not new. They have been here for quite a long time. And I think they work in some specific cases. In a lot of, especially B2B environments, I think sometimes they distract a little bit from the real purpose, which is more educational or transactional. It makes sense when you want to show something that you cannot see live. And this is the ones I call the virtual events, more like virtual reality type of event, even if you don't really use virtual reality gear for that. And I like the word online event when the event is happening just online, and and then you have sessions like the ones we are having here, and then you have an online catalog, and you can get face-to-face meeting online with the exhibitors, etc. If there's also a part of the event happening live on site in an exhibition hall, then let's call it a hybrid event, and keep the word virtual event for those 3D like environment, which work in certain cases, but I think my experience is sometimes it doesn't really click. So I would say virtual versus hybrid versus online. This for me would be, okay, maybe we should just agree to use these terms so it's clear what we're talking about.
Well said. And well, TESI mentioned about the millennials mindset and how we need to evolve ourselves to kind of think about what they are thinking, to step into their shoes. And this would require millennials to step in as our workforce, or maybe to think like them. And this would involve skill upgradation. I would like to invite Justin to comment on what skills will be required to drive the virtual events for our conventional organizers.
It's a great question, and it's a really pertinent one right now. So I'm torn actually, because we have great people in our industry already. They really understand our customers. They understand our communities. They understand the power of events. And of course, the virtual and the digital products are new applications within this space. I think that people have been working incredibly hard through this crisis. It's been a very difficult time. So for me, I'm going to go with really good salespeople. People that really understand their customers, know how to talk to their customers, and will engage with their customers and convince them to come on this journey with us. For me, that is the first and foremost. Yes, we need more tech savvy people. We need people that can read data better, really interpret that data and give it back to us as an industry. You know, we could do with a base room full of programmers to work on the virtual events that we're trying to launch. You know, we have a lot of good suppliers in this space though. There's a lot of good technology platforms. There's a lot of good tools already in the market. So, you know, that is my answer. I'm a little bit torn, but I'm going to stick with salespeople. But I would like to jump to your generational question that you posed to TESI, because, you know, Gen Z is coming through, and it's going to come through fast. But I was also thinking about your first question to me, RAGHAV, which was the aha moment. And I actually have had an aha moment in the industry, a real light bulb that switched on. And I was attending a 4-year-old's birthday party. It was actually my goddaughter's. So the children attending this birthday party were from the ages of 4 till 10, and they attended a hybrid event. I attended a hybrid event, sorry. And I've got to say, the event was fantastic. The level of engagement, the level of entertainment, the host was incredible, the fun and games were great. And my biggest takeaway, apart from the birthday cake, was the children's interaction with screens. Nobody questioned that they weren't together. Nobody questioned that they weren't in the same room. They just fully participated and embraced every moment of it. And when it ended, and they carried on. So I really think that TESI's point about seamless integration for the generations that are coming through, not just Gen Z, but the generations after and the generations after, they're the people that we are basically working really to provide solutions to right now.
I would just like to add one point for the employee engagement as well as the employee repurpose training. We had a 200+ employee skill set, which was there pre-COVID. And what we were able to do was retrain them to be able to handle certain levels of virtual conferences. Yes, it was a tough task, but if the same people who were doing the physical events are able to learn the technology of the virtual events, you get a much better human seamless experience. So just to give you an example, my exhibition manager who used to talk to exhibitors to build up their stands physically, the same person is talking to the exhibitors to build up their stands virtually. So he already understands, what he needs to say, how to do the graphics, small things. So that cross-platform integration is also important when we are going to go into hybrid events, which, as far as I think of the Indian market, will be a 6 to 8 month period of hybrid event versus only another 2 to 3 months of virtual event experience, which is going to last. Because as soon as we have the opening up of the market, we are going to have the whole flood of hybrid events. And there you need a technology person who understands the physical and at the same time is able to do the virtual part. So that integration of the hybrid is the most critical part if you want to give the users a very efficient hybrid event, which is a stepping stone to a fully turned physical event, so that people are, slowly going into that aspect as a movement. So I think that integration and that hybrid cross-platform integration is most important.
Yes, integration is important, and I can recollect some days back, 10 times posted a jobs opening, and they had an opening for virtual events manager. So Atul, can you tell us what are the traits that you look in for the virtual events manager? This is a new role that I've been acquainted with.
There's two parts to it, right? One major thing is every event that we are hosting, no matter if it's trust me, there's problems with Zoom as well. It's, for some organizers, even this is complicated because there's a lot of bringing people on, taking people off, putting mic on, putting mic off. So, the virtual event manager, I think there's a whole new gig economy that is being created where people would be trained in softwares like Hopin, Floor, and your whole host of virtual solutions. No matter if the event is hybrid, virtual, if you have a component, you need the skill set of someone who will handle your event. Traditionally, there's someone who was your event intern, or you were hiring coordinators, admin, they need to either upgrade, or you would need to hire these freelancers who need to be skilled in technical solutions. Because I've seen the difference when an organizer has someone who is equipped with how to handle that platform well, versus someone who's just panicking. Because again, we got to understand, we are in the business of live. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's physical or virtual, we are in the live business. I mean, and the whole event, one of the skill set of an event organizer is to deal with panic situation. I mean, that is our biggest skill set. So when you are hiring these virtual planners, they need to be very adaptable to panic situation and be able to handle and calm things down. Because if a session something goes wrong, with technology, something or the other would go wrong, right? So they have to manage it well. So I think that was the job role that we've been looking for and we've been trying to hire.
Okay, so slowly I see that the pattern of getting more specialized is coming into our industry, from being a jack of all trades to master of none. Now we need specialized people for each job, which is very good. And with this, I've also like to mention few trends which are coming up. Like I had a session with Singapore destination and with Marina Bay Sands, and the venues are preparing themselves with virtual studios. They are creating environments where they can synergize with the physical event, and they can host the virtual event right at their venue. So I'd like to go to Mike and understand whether he wants to comment on some upcoming trends which he foresees for the industry.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, with regards to those virtual studios, we saw. I mean, it was a smaller event. It was just an events industry quiz night of all things. But it was hosted from a company over here that had pretty much a virtual TV studio, and it worked quite well. If anything, I think there was an app that was being used to actually participate in the quiz, which kind of let it down a little bit. But no, I think we'll see certainly more of that creeping into venues to bridge that gap between the physical and the virtual side of things. But in terms of trends, I actually wanted to just come back to the skill sides of things, because absolutely there's going to be a new set of skills that we need in order to be able to deliver the virtual and the digital side of things. But actually, we need to make sure that we've got the sort of the cross-departmental collaboration within our organizations as well. So, pre-pandemic, there were examples where, say, a sales team and a marketing team were quite siloed away from each other. And actually, when you got those two teams to collaborate far more, you saw a much greater ROI in terms of the lead generation brought in from the marketing team and acted upon by the sales team. And I think it's really important that when we bring in people to bridge some of these skill sets, we need to be seeing a trend of those people being integrated fully within the rest of the organization. Each team needs to understand what everybody else is doing. Otherwise, it's not going to be that seamless in terms of having the right effect for our customer experience.
Well, I would like to add something to what Mike said very, very quickly. I think that was an important point. I remember I did once an investigation which show offers successfully online products and which show doesn't. And the show who didn't offer successfully online products at this time, they always said, I'm in the wrong industry or I'm in the wrong country. So my audience doesn't want to have online products. But the result of the investigation was something totally different. The result was a show is successful with online products when the show director is excited about offering the online product. So it had nothing to do with the country, it had nothing to do with the industry. It was really, is the internal stakeholder excited about the idea to do something with online, and does he understand the opportunity of online? And that plays exactly what Mike said. It's not enough to hire the right people. We also need to train up the people we have in our companies, and we need to make them excited about online events, hybrid events. Otherwise, we would fail even if we hire the best people on that planet.
Absolutely. And I think we've had a very, very wonderful conversation here with a lot of good points, a lot of learnings for me personally through this session. And with this, I would like to thank all our esteemed speakers who have taken out their precious time to deliberate on this very significant topic. I would like to thank you all.